We're just going to get into it. What changed? Friday was a stand up and take notice day. What changed? Now, obviously, everybody knows Jackson Hole, but what really changed? Let's talk about some of the facts that are there before we even get into what changed. Number one, to afford a median priced home in the United States right now, you need to have an income of $124,000. The actual median income right now in the US is $79,000, which means there's about a 57% gap between home affordability and prices for homes. So that's problem number one. Let's talk about problem number two. Stocks are basically at all-time highs. Home prices, to a large extent, are sitting at all-time highs. Just so you should know, there is now in the home market more supply than there ever was. I believe the number is north of 500,000 homes available, but there's no buyers. There's a buyer strip. You have Bitcoin almost at all-time highs, gold basically sitting almost at all-time highs. M2 money supply is basically sitting at all-time highs. The national debt is sitting almost at all-time highs. CPI inflation adjusted is approximately 4%, which is 2 times what the Fed's target is. The Fed's target is 2%. And you have a somewhat dovish speech on Friday about cutting rates, and the market ripped. Really, what changed? So if you were to ask anyone, the speech basically sounded very crafted. It was very non-committal in either way. It was definitely had a dovish tone to it, but it was non-committal. He did mention that he does see unemployment picking up, but that could be also because we do have less people looking for work because of the whole deportation agenda in the country. So you are losing more people. So there are less people looking for jobs, but at the same time, you have AI that's coming, which is also to a large extent getting rid of some of those jobs also. So I don't know if necessarily jobs is a good way to look at things. He did mention tariffs. He didn't harp on it. He did say that there is price pressures. They're waiting to see. They are data dependent. It's a little bit more on the, I'm going to use the word squishy, because you had a situation where the Fed is talking about data dependence, and yet you had unemployment numbers rocketing, which basically says that the Fed needs to stimulate. But at the same time, the following week, you got a PPI number that shows inflation is going up. So they're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think he said enough here to pique interest that potentially they may do something. We still have another NFP coming. We still have some more data that comes out before they even have to make this decision. It's going to be interesting what happens. Maybe they cut by 25 bips. The market's basically under the assumption that it's going to be 25 bips. I think 50 is a stretch. I don't think we're going to get 50, to be honest with you. I also believe that off of what he said, even if he were to cut, if they see a change, I think he would be aggressive to hike. So right now, I don't think you really got anything exciting out of the market. I'm sorry, I don't think the market got anything exciting out of Powell. I think it was more a relief that he wasn't hawkish. I think that's really what sent everything. Now, the move that happened was all machines. It's obvious that it was machines, that just because of the speed of the velocity. Human beings don't act like that. That was all machines. So I wouldn't read into it. I think your better bet to see what happens is how much of Friday do we actually hold on to? If the market can show that it can hold on to at least 50% of Friday's move. So let's assume an S&P cash 64.30 for argument's sake. If the market can hold, that'll be bullish. If the market just takes this whole move back, that'll be extremely bearish. So it's just something to keep in mind. I do believe that the market was moving off of relief rather than actual data, because Meta earlier in the week discussed how they were laying off and slowing down AI hiring. I think that potentially that AI bubble may be, I don't want to say popping because that's a very bold statement to say, but I think it's slowing down. I don't think Meta is the last company to mention about how they're slowing down in their AI hiring or shutting it down or laying off or whatever. I think that they're the beginning. So let's get into the charts. Let's just see what happens. Obviously, Friday was an igniting bar. We talked about the 50%. We'll see. Is the commitment to it, and it keeps going. It could. Last week of August, liquidity is low, volume is low, news flow doesn't stop, earnings don't stop. We're getting a video this week. Earnings don't stop. The world continues. The only difference is that not as many people are participating. Again, last week of August, last week before summer, before school starts, people try to take advantage of it, take a vacation. So that's just something to keep in mind. Let's look at NDX quickly. NDX also. What's interesting is that the S&P was ripping and the NDX did not. Yes, the numbers were big. I'm not saying it wasn't, but look at where it was in comparison to the S&P. S&P is basically all-time high beta tech. No. Why? I think that AI story is what's playing out. That's why I think NVIDIA, and we'll get to NVIDIA in a minute, but why NVIDIA is going to be a little bit more important, what they say from the AI standpoint. A lot of things that I think people were banking on in AI is not really working out as quickly as some would have anticipated. Just quickly, semis. Semis also. See, there's a very big difference between the S&P. You see how high beta tech is working and also tech stocks in general. Let's quickly, the Russell had a big day. That was a big day. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, when the Fed lowers rates, then it makes buying stocks more attractive because people who are holding bonds will look for yield. But the truth of the matter is that bonds are still yielding. So there's really no reason to rotate out of fixed income completely and start going into stocks. It's not there yet. I would keep an eye on the 30-year Treasury this week. Let's just look at that quickly. That's the TYX. Oops. I would keep my eye on this. This is going to be very important for this week. This will signify how borrowing is doing. So I would definitely be paying attention to this. If you start seeing the 30-year, not the 10-year, but the 30-year start creeping up, really creeping up, that's going to put a lot of pressure on stocks. So just keep that in mind. Let's just get into some of these stocks quickly. Okay, NVIDIA obviously reports this week. We'll just start there. It's had a big run. It's had a really big run. Again, this day was really that AI thing from Meta. I don't think it's over. We'll see what NVIDIA has to say. I'll probably try and do a NVIDIA's earning preview just because it's really important for the market. Not only because it's number one in weight-wise, but just because the AI story and everything that's going on around that space is really NVIDIA dependent. So they've become really important, almost like what Apple was years ago. And then going back even further, what Exxon was years ago. It's really important to the market. We'll see how that plays out. Probably do an earnings preview the night before. That's NVIDIA. Let's just get into the other names quickly. Apple, again, it's going to be a recurring theme over and over again. And it's just something you have to pay attention to. I believe that the AI bubble, some air has been let out of this, and tech being such a huge percentage of the S&P from a weight perspective, if tech starts to roll over, which some names are, Apple is holding in there right now. Microsoft is rolling over, got to the 50. It didn't really move much on Friday. Some of these names are definitely starting to roll over because I think people are reassessing the whole AI. Let's just quickly look at Amazon. Amazon was fine. Walmart call was not the greatest. Might put some pressure on Amazon moving forward. Friday was an aberration. So we're going to you have to a large extent ignore it because it was really just driven off of Jackson Hole. We'll see what happens this week. Google's hanging in there pretty well. Obviously, Meta was a different story. We know the deal, what happened there, so we're not going to regurgitate it. Broadcom hanging in, but a lot of these names are bent. They're not broken, but they're bent. CrowdStrike, this is just a broken name. It's holding the 200. It may not for too much longer. See how that plays out. ServiceNow, also another name that's pretty much broken at this point. Netflix is holding, but I think Netflix is holding right now because people are hiding there. It's a safe place to hide. So it makes sense. Let's just look quickly at Tesla. Tesla not really doing much. Honestly, no catalyst, no nothing. It's really not doing much. Let's just end off in Palantir. So this was interesting. I saw something earlier in the week, and I forgot who was talking, and it's irrelevant, but they were basically saying how the move in Palantir on the upside they didn't agree with it. And they were listing out their reasons why they weren't agreeing with it. And a lot of it was fundamental, sales, et cetera, et cetera. And it was a good argument. I'm not going to say it wasn't a good argument. But I think the thing that this person missed, or this group of people missed, was that Palantir right now is a momentum stock. Momentum stocks don't need justification. So if they're trading 40 times, 60 times, 80 times, 100 times, whatever it is, when you get momentum in a lot of these names, especially a Palantir, they will go past nosebleed valuations just because the wind is at their back because of momentum. So it's really moving a lot on momentum. Whether you agree with the business model or not, whether you agree with how much money they're making, whether you agree with the valuation, it somewhat doesn't matter. Because if people feel that it should be priced higher and it should be valued higher and it has momentum at its back or wind at its back to push that momentum, it's going to just keep going. So one of the things I would tell you is when you're watching some of these analysts or commentators or pundits or whatever you want to call them, you have to ask yourself when you're looking at the chart, we try to match up fundamentals, obviously, the goals, but sometimes you have to throw fundamentals out the window and just say it's moving on pure momentum, which is really what Palantir was moving on. NVIDIA also, we'll just go to the video quickly for a second. Okay. NVIDIA is moving on pure momentum. It's not sexy and it's not amazing, but it's moving on pure momentum. Let's not kid ourselves. When you look out at, let's say, Palantir is moving on pure momentum. Whether you agree with the I think $158.70, let's just say $159 per share price or not, is irrelevant because the momentum is there. So the point is, if you try a short or you try a long and it doesn't come to fruition and it doesn't move the way you want, get out of the way and get out of the way quickly. You do not want to stand in the way of momentum. It's a very dangerous game. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.